for his family. The verdict shines a light, though, on the corrupting influence of the big oil service company up there in Alaska that was allowed to control too much of our state. Thank you, guys.
Governor Palin at the airport in Richmond, Virginia this evening, reacting to the conviction of Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska. The longest-serving Republican senator in U.S. history was found guilty of accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars in gifts and favors from friends, including a $29,000 fish sculpture. Why that's worth $29,000, I'm not sure. And a Viking gas grill, reportedly that's worth around $5,000. And apparently he also got a vibrating massage chair for nearly $2,700. Not sure what he did with that. Stevens is one of several prominent Republican lawmakers facing a bruising re-election campaign against Democratic challengers. Let's talk strategy. Joining us again, CNN senior political analyst, former presidential advisor David Gergen, CNN chief national correspondent John King, and New York Times international business editor Marcus Mabry. John, you talked to one GOP operative who warned that in his words, said, quote, feels like the makings of a landslide. There are a couple races. Elizabeth Dole fighting with the Democratic newcomer to keep on to her seat in North Carolina. Norm Coleman slightly behind comedian Al Franken in Minnesota. Could the Democrats reach that magic 60 seats in the Senate?
They could. Most Democrats and most Republicans think it is unlikely they will get to 60, but many Republicans are now conceding that they might get to 58 or 59. And Anderson, we don't know is the answer to some of these questions because there's a seat now in Georgia. Saxby Chambliss is the incumbent there. He's now adding more and more money to his TV buy because suddenly he's worried. That's one of the states where increased African-American turnout could mean coattails beyond Barack Obama, who probably won't win Georgia, but could influence congressional races in that state. We're going to start the night with a Democratic pickup in Virginia. Elizabeth Dole in North Carolina would be number 2 for the Democrats if Senator Dole falls. She's thrown a lot of money in lately. There are competitive races across the country, and with that verdict today in the Stevens trial, even all Republicans, even though he is staying on the ballot, Republicans tell you privately they expect that one to go for the Democrats as well. And on the presidential side, I mean, some of these states, Marcus, you've been watching Indiana. John McCain, I just said in that poll, it's up by 1 point, but I mean, that's remarkable.
It's astounding, Anderson, because Indiana is a deep, deep red state. If you have a Republican like John McCain, who was so popular, remember in the primary season, this guy came back from death, and now he's just got a 1-point lead over Obama. What we're talking about here is the possibility of the first electoral college mandate that we've had in 12 years in this country. We haven't had a popular vote mandate in longer than that. The possibility here is that many deep red states could turn Obama. They might not. It's still probably a long shot that Indiana will go that way. But if the race remains this tight, and if the Democrat get out the vote machine is really as powerful as we expect it to be, this could really spell a really bad day for Republicans across the board.
David, I want to talk a little bit with you about some of the accusations being made now by John McCain, kind of hitting Barack Obama on this sort of socialism thing. There was a very testy interview with an Orlando news anchor between the anchor and Joe Biden. I just want to play a little bit of this for our viewers.
You may recognize this famous quote, from each according to his abilities, to each according to his needs. That's from Karl Marx. How is Senator Obama not being a Marxist if he intends to spread the wealth around?
Are you joking? Is this a joke?
No.
Or is that a real question?
That's a question.
It's certainly a question the McCain campaign has kind of been hammering at, portraying Obama as a socialist. You heard that on the Palin campaign as well. Is it working?
They may be making some modest progress with it, Anderson. We do see some evidence of McCain coming up a point or two here and there. I don't think it's anywhere near close enough to win an election. And more importantly, I don't think the Democrats have really answered it, appropriately. Teddy Roosevelt, a Republican, was very much an advocate of what's called progressive taxation, and that is the rich should pay more than the poor in terms of taxes. Now, one of the most effective poverty programs we've had in the last 3 decades is called the Earned Income Tax Credit. It's a program whereby if you're a working person, a working couple, and you're below the poverty line, the government will actually give you money. That's a redistributive program. It's a program which takes money from the upper classes and gives it to the lower, to working poor. Now, who started that program, the Earned Income Tax Credit? Ronald Reagan. It was an achievement of the Reagan administration that Bill Clinton then built on. So I think that these arguments, sometimes get so carried away that they don't recognize the realities of what we've been going through in public policy. And the big arguments about why the wealth over the last 30 years has been redistributed. It's been redistributed upwards.
John,
as we grow, the top 1%, it's getting a disproportionate share.
John, this really started with that video of Obama talking to Joe the plumber. McCain today slammed Obama for a 2001 audio tape where he suggested one of the tragedies of the civil rights movement was that it didn't lead to what he said, what he termed as redistributive change. I just want to play the full bite to put it in the correct context.
The Supreme Court never ventured into the issues of redistribution of wealth and sort of more basic issues of political and economic justice in the society. And to that extent, as radical as I think people tried to characterize the Warren Court, it wasn't that radical.
McCain's now called Obama Barack the redistributor. Do you see McCain getting momentum with this?
They have solidified the base, and they say it is working among white, downscale, rural voters who they need in this election. But, Anderson, what many Republicans say is, where was this 6 months ago? Barack Obama is left of John Kerry. He is left of Michael Dukakis. You could run a classic liberal tax and spend campaign against him. Would it work in this year? That's a debate we could have from now through the election and into the new year. But it seems scattershot. Everything McCain does seems scattershot to most Republican strategies. Say, if you're going to build this case that this guy is so liberal on economic policy, social policy, and anything else, you needed to start a long time ago and build your case, not just throw these things out.
I think the problem now is there's a sense of desperation to it all, a sense of McCain's trying to throw anything he can at this candidate. And playing old clips of Professor Obama really doesn't scare anybody. I think the Republicans are in deep trouble when they're just basically trying to clutch at any straw they can find.
We're going to have more from our panel coming up.
Yeah.
It's a historic election. We want to make sure that your voting rights are being protected next Tuesday. If you run into any trouble with the polls, call our CNN voter hotline. Toll-free number is 1-877-462-6608. Keeping them honest.